Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. As we wait for people to join, I'd request you. Good morning, everyone. As we wait for more people to join, I would request that we do a simple poll. So I'm going to run a simple poll so that we can just to get a sense of the audience.
I can't hear. I'm sorry, but I don't know what's wrong with the camera, but I can't hear it. Hello.
Morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Currently now I can hear and see. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. So, in the interest of time, we shall start our session shortly.
Okay. I think I better record this video because it can be, instead of texting, I think instead of.
Yes, I'm going to do that. So you're all most welcome to this session of the Money Engineer. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I request you to mute. We're going to record this session, so you will have access to the recordings on YouTube and Facebook. So you're most welcome. I'm called Intended John.
I can't hear again.
Yes. Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I think we're having some feedback in the room. So I'm called Intended John. I run the Money Engineer brand, which is basically a financial education brand, and our mission really is to improve the financial well-being of fellow Ugandans and fellow citizens wherever they may be in the world. So we hold these monthly workshops, online workshops, every last Saturday at 10 a.m. And we shall be doing that going forward. So we shall have different speakers speaking to different audiences, really just to share our experiences, to invite other people who are more knowledgeable than us on anything to do with business, entrepreneurship, financial literacy, and investment. So today's session is very dear to me. It's about how to build a cottage business. And we are going to use our case study because we've invested in a small manufacturing business. And the person who is going to be sharing with us is Mr. Eddie Mugulusi. Eddie Mugulusi happens to be my younger brother, and we've been in business for a while now. He's very passionate about entrepreneurship, and straight from university, all he's done is business. So in this particular project, we've partnered, and we've been doing this for about 3-4 years. And we just want to share with you our experience. It's not that we are the best in business, but I believe when you share and learn from each other, you can all benefit. And we're also here to learn from you as we share our experience as well. So without wasting much time, I'd like to welcome Mr. Eddie Mugulusi. Eddie, you can first unshare the slides so that people can see you, and then you can be able to
So good morning to you all, and thank you, John. Thank you for putting this conversation here together today. It always gives me joy when I get to share my experiences for the benefit of others, especially those that are embarking on the same entrepreneurial journey. So I am really delighted to be here, and I believe we're going to have a good conversation, learn from each other, basically. So yes, John, I'm delighted to be here. So if we can now, just to talk a little bit about me. My name is Eddie Mugulusi, and I am the CEO at a company called Fab Creations. We're basically a small manufacturing company for foods, beverages, and condiments. And at the moment, our company has 5 products that we are actively pushing. And I believe as we continue, during the course of this conversation, we're going to get to know more about these products, and yeah, we shall engage as we go on. Now, on a personal note, I am 33 years old. I am a husband, and I am a father. And there is nothing that I like to do more than business. I think I've done business since my senior 4 vacation. That's when I started my very first hustles. And all the way till now, I've never looked back. I have never formally applied for a job. All the time, from the time I finished campus, I simply went into business till to date. So at the moment, formally doing business, I think I have about 9 to 10 years of business experience. Basically, starting and running and growing small businesses in different spheres of industries, education, health, media. I've done quite a bit of business over the years. So today I use my experience to share with other people that are just getting started or others that want to grow their businesses. So as a side hustle also, I run a business consultancy program. Basically, I just help other people that are hoping to join this journey. We formulate strategies that can help you drive your business forward. So yes, that's what I do. And John, I think that's a little bit about who I am.
So thank you, Eddie. So that's a little bit about Eddie. So I'll invite Eddie to make a brief presentation for about 30 minutes or so. Then thereafter, we shall interact for about 30 minutes. And then we'll be able to close the session hopefully within an hour. So I'll invite Eddie to present. The poll has had an issue, so I'll invite Eddie to present some slides to share with us his journey, focusing on what his experience has been, what are the challenges, how has he navigated all the bottlenecks, and what does the future hold? And for those wondering what is a cottage business all about. So I'll invite Eddie to speak. If you have any questions, I'll request you either type them in the chat so that when we reach the end, we can be able to answer them. So if you have any question as we are going through the presentation, just put it in the chat. Then at the end, we shall address those questions. But if there are any residual questions, we shall share our contacts so that we can keep engaging. Because I believe the future of Africa and Uganda is homegrown solutions. We cannot depend on foreigners for our development. So the entrepreneurship culture, I think, has to be nurtured by all parties. And as the money engineers, we're trying to nurture that culture. So there are many players, but I believe everyone should play their role. Our role is to share our experience and to educate people about finances. And there isn't much education which happens in schools about finances and business. So we're trying to fill that gap by sharing practical knowledge. So I'll invite Eddie to share his story, and then we shall do a Q&A after his presentation. I would encourage, if you have any question, just put it in the chat. I will encourage you to mute your microphones so that we can listen to the presentation. So Eddie, over to you.
All right, so I think we can get started now. I hope I'm audible enough. Huh? All right, so let's get into today's topic, how to start and build a cottage business. Let me just use a second to talk about what a cottage business actually means, because people have been asking what is this thing all about. So in brief, a cottage business is a small-scale manufacturing entity that is usually run out of a home as opposed to a purpose-built structure. So if it is small in size, if it is in manufacturing, if it uses human labor as opposed to advanced equipment, if it is using local raw materials, then it qualifies to be called a cottage business. And ideally, that's what we are running as Fab Creations. So my journey into manufacturing began in the year 2017. Now, for purposes of today's conversation, I've broken this journey down into 6 major steps. Now, I believe these 6 steps are those that best define what we have been through as a business, all the way from 2017 to get to where we are today. So all the losses, all the gains, all the late nights, are documented in these 6 steps. So in the year 2017, I had a dream. The dream was to become a manufacturer. It is something that had been introduced to me through a book that I read at the time. Now, in this book, the author makes a case for how rich countries got rich and why poor countries stay poor. And in the book, the author says that there is no single country in the world that has managed to propel itself to first world status without having a strong industrial sector. At this very point, I was sold. And from that point on, I became really interested into manufacturing, and I decided that I would venture out into manufacturing. However, to go into manufacturing successfully, something as big as manufacturing, I needed a strong justification, a reason why I should be that entrepreneur that goes into this. Because from personal experience, I have come to learn that if you go into a business engagement without a strong justification as why you should be there, then it is more than likely that you will, at the first sight of challenges or hardships, you're more likely to sort of lose momentum, and eventually you're actually likely to give up along the way. So I needed a strong justification. And for me, it became about 3 things. Number 1, manufacturing became a lifelong dream for me. It is the thing that I see myself pursuing for the rest of my life, basically. I want to build something big. Then number 2, it became about personal achievement for me. You see, I've always been that kind of entrepreneur that is rather ambitious. I'm always pushing myself to do new things. I'm always looking for new opportunities. So manufacturing presented me with the perfect opportunity to achieve success at a really high level. So as an entrepreneur, I'm looking to reach new frontiers in business. I'm looking to spread my wings. So it became about personal achievement. Then number 3, it became about building a legacy for me. As an entrepreneur, I look at myself as a builder, a kind of person that enjoys building businesses from the ground up. And as I do it, I want to impact positively on my society and also the people that I work with. So with these 3 justifications, I then moved on to the next phase. I wanted an idea that would then launch me into manufacturing. And after a couple of weeks of thinking about ideas, I stumbled onto something so interesting, and it took me all the way back to my high school days. I remember being in high school, and we had this hustle of trying to spice up the meals. I studied in a school called the College. And while we were there, the meals were lousy. Basically, we fed on posho and beans Monday to Sunday. The beans were so watery, they were not very well prepared. So at that point, we took locally made appeta from home. We took OD, we took tomato sauce. People used margarine in food. We bought avocado. We did everything possible to try and spice up the food. So for me, the idea was simple. What if I came up with a condiment that was produced using some really rich spices, in that when you applied it to a plate of food, it instantly turned it into a miracle meal? Now, this product would be more convenient, it would be more handy, it would be widely available, and it would be cheap. So with that idea, I thought I was onto something. So I moved on to the next phase. The next phase was for me to qualify that idea. And from experience, I have come to learn that a good, viable business idea should have 2 fundamental points. Number 1, it should solve a problem. It should solve a problem, and at that point, I knew what the problem was in schools. It should solve a problem, and there should be a market, a well-defined market that is actually willing to pay for this product. I could see that my idea could meet that threshold. Then number 2, there should be a big enough market such that when you launch that idea, it is enough market to make you profitable. Now, when I looked at the sheer number of schools across the country, there were just so many. So the market potential for me was big. So then I moved on to the next point. And at that next phase, now what I needed to do now was to again further qualify my idea. If my idea meets those 2 fundamentals of what makes a viable business, is it feasible? Is it viable? Is it desirable? Now, when I looked at all these things in the sense of the business idea, the human resource, the technology that was required, when I put all these things into perspective, the idea looked like it was attainable for me. So with that, I was now confident that I could embark on this idea and see how to make it a reality. So the next thing that I did was then to move on to creating a prototype. You see, I had an idea of a condiment, but I needed to create a prototype, something that I could actually take to the market and test with real customers. So a minimum viable product, building a minimum viable product, it's basically you as an entrepreneur finding the least amount of resources possible to create a version of that idea in your head so that you create it into reality. It should meet the basic properties of what a consumer would look out for in such a product. So that's exactly what I did. I linked up with a friend of mine from my university days. She had studied food processing technology, since on my end, I did not have any background there. So we began experimenting. After selling her the dream, and she bought it. And eventually, after experimenting for a couple of times, on the 6th attempt, we came up with a product. And out of excitement, this product was so tasty. I called a bunch of my friends that day at my office at the time. As you can see in this photo, there is a friend of mine that is holding a bottle. Now, that bottle held the first contents of the first successful experiment. So we bought up a bunch of muchomo and we just began to test this thing. There was a lot of excitement. And in the end, everybody said, you are really onto something. So the next order of business now for me was to produce it and take it to the schools. And that's exactly what we did. Now, I brought a few of my friends on board to help me out. And in this picture, you can see how we began operations. This was in my tiny kitchen back then in Chisasi. I was renting a small apartment in Chisasi at the time. So it was just a bunch of guys cutting up onions, frying things. Basically, we were excited about the prospects. So that's how the journey began. So at the end of this day, we came up with these cartons. These were the very first cartons that we made. Now, as you can look at this picture, this was nothing fancy. It was just guys trying to be resourceful. We wanted to create a product that I could then take to the market and validate my assumptions in a real school environment. And that's exactly what we did. So we took these cartons, a bunch of them, visited schools that were around me within the Chisasi area. And at the schools, we gave out free samples. And as you can only imagine, this product was so tasty. So within just minutes, word of mouth began to spread within the schools. And we had an influx of students within at the canteens. So before you knew it, we were selling. And just like that, the demand for it was demonstrable. So we could see that this idea was really going to be viable. So the next thing for me now was to experiment with bottles. Now in this photo, again, you can see us in my tiny kitchen. We are filling up a bottle with this new condiment, the ketchup, using a funnel and a cap. Again, minimum viable product. We found ways to make this work. So the idea was that since the sachets were successful in the schools, let us try this out of school markets, go to muchomo places, sell to friends and family, and again, gauge the feedback. And in this picture, you can see the very first bottles in 2017 that we created. This was a friend of mine that I had brought on board at the time. We were filled with excitement and the prospects looked like we were really onto something. Now, after this, we then got to the drawing board because now I felt like I had all the data that I needed to launch this product. Now, there were two strategies. Either we go to the school market or we think of an out of school market, which was the supermarket strategy. Now, the school market presented some hardships because we needed a substantial amount of investment to get into the school market. That money was not available at the time. So I decided to shelve that idea for the future. The most likely solution or idea was to venture out into the supermarkets because we did not need technical machinery. And that's what we did. So at this point, I brought John on board. I sold him the idea. He loved the idea. And so he decided to come and partner up with me on this project. And the first thing that John helped me out with was import a few devices. One of them is a bottle filling machine to fill the ketchup into the bottles. And the other one, they're basically onion choppers. We were cutting lots of onions. So we found a way to make the process much easier. At the end, this is what we came up with. We revamped the look of the ketchup because we wanted it to be competitive on supermarket shelves. We changed the name from Appetit initially to Shake Food Flavoring. And with this, we began operations in my tiny kitchen. About 2 people were doing the processing, and then another 2 people were going to take care of the sales in the field. It was simply an exciting time for me as I look back. Now, as we built inventory, the processes were manual. So we took some time, maybe we'd work like 2 days and make like 100 bottles of this. So with these bottles, we'd then fuel up my car with a friend of mine, and then we'd hit the road and we start to distribute this to supermarkets. And that's exactly what we did. Now, this photo shows you one of the first supermarkets that let us in. And the strategy we used was simple. We targeted these small supermarkets in those areas that we believed most of the young people resided, people that are interested in ketchup. So these photos show you some of the supermarkets that we visited, and that is shake on the supermarket shelves. So quickly we built our distribution to about 50 supermarkets within Kampala and its neighboring suburbs. Now, as we were doing that, we realized that we have to drive awareness. People have to know about our product so that they're able to buy it. And that's exactly what we did. At the time, I owned a photography company together with another colleague. We had a photo studio.
What's happened? I can't hear. I'm not sure.
Can you hear us, Eddie? Try to carry on.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Eddie, we can't
okay?
hear.
All right.
Eddie,
so that's exactly what we did. We set up a Facebook page.
Eddie. I think it's a network issue because.
Yes, so that's exactly what we did. We set up a Facebook page and we began.
Eddie, are you there?
Eddie.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Sorry about the technical glitch. We're having some bit about technical glitch. Yeah, but I think we can carry on. You can hear me? Yeah, so using a photography company that I owned at the time, we began to take these creative images, putting some creative captions on them. And the idea was we take these to Facebook, where we had set up a page, and drive awareness. So that's exactly what we did. Now, after running with this supermarket idea for about 3 months, we decided to get back to the drawing board and evaluate the strategy. This is the next part in the journey. Now, with this evaluation process, we wanted to do we pivot the business. If the business was not doing well, then we pivot.
Eddie, I think that you have network issue.
Or if the business was doing well and there were prospects, then we'd persevere and continue to build it. However, when we went into
Eddie, you're not talking.
Okay, sorry again for that technical glitch. We seem to be having an issue with the network. Nonetheless, let me carry on. So let me just back up a little bit. So because we're now distributing this ketchup within the supermarkets, we decided that we had to drive awareness. People needed to find out so that they would start buying these things off the supermarket shelf. Now, what happened was this. We set up a Facebook page, and using a photography company that I co-owned with a friend of mine, we started to take these interesting photos. We'd basically prepare food from my place, carry it to the supermarket. So we would carry it to the photography company, and then we'd take these interesting photos, put some interesting captions, and that's how we're able to build awareness. So slowly by slowly, we began to gain traction. Now, after doing this for about 3 months, we got back to the drawing board because we wanted to evaluate the strategy. This was the next part in the journey. Now, with this idea, we wanted to do 2 things. It was either, if the business was doing well, then we'd persevere and push it further. However, yes, can you hear me now? Yeah, so we got back to the drawing board to evaluate the business strategy. And in evaluating, we wanted to do 2 things. Find out if the business was doing well, then we'd push it further and persevere. However, if the business was not performing well, we'd pivot it to something else. Now, unfortunately, what we discovered was that we were doing badly as a business at that point. The strategy was failing because of one reason. We had a new product, and because it was new, the supermarkets were unwilling to give us cash for it. They wanted us to deliver consignment. So basically, we give you product, you sell it, then we come back, pick the money, and give you more product. Unfortunately, this was a new product. So it was stuck on the shelves for literally 3 months in many of the supermarkets. So at that point, we decided this idea was not going to work. So then we began the process to pivot our business onto the school market, because the school market presented better ideas, it presented a better opportunity. So this part of the journey is what we now call pivoting to the school strategy. We are going back to the initial strategy. Again, for purposes of today's conversation, I have broken down this journey into 6 major steps. These are the 6 steps that we went through to again restart the business and take it back to the original idea. The first thing we did was embark on research. We did not want to go into this without having proper information about what we were going into. So the first order of business was we fueled my car with a friend of mine, and we moved on. We began visiting schools. We visited about 20 to 25 schools. At the schools, it was simple. Our objective was simple. We wanted to study the competition. So we wanted to ask questions such as, what are the competing condiments within the schools? How are they packaged? In what quantities? At what price are they sold? How is the consumption amongst the students? These are all the questions that we asked. And in the end, we talked to the canteen attendants and we talked to the students just to get information. Now, at the end of this all, it gave us a lot of information that we then got to use to build our go-to-market strategy. So the next part of the process then was to develop into that capital, basically capital investment. And at that point, we needed to take the business out of my tiny kitchen. We needed to find a bigger place. Now, this is a place where our operations began. I remember John mentioned that he had a house that he had built at the time, but it had been abandoned since then. It was not being used. So quickly we picked interest and I went with him and we visited the place. Now, this picture shows you what this house looks like at the time. There was a lot of work that was required to do. To begin with, the place was, the walls were not painted, the floors were not done, the place was bushy, it had no running water, there was no electricity connection, there was just a lot for us to do. And on top of that, our entire family used it as a dumping ground. Whoever had old stuff that they did not use, they just dumped it there. And in this photo, you can see a few of the things that we had dumped there. So we had a lot of work on our plates, and immediately we got working. The first thing we did, as you can see in this photo, was clear the bushes. This was a photo that was taken after some of the bushes had been cleared, and you can evidently see the grass beginning to dry up. The next order of business was now to work on the floors. And in this photo, you can see the floors have already been done. They're still freshly done. And then we commenced to paint. We had to paint the entire place. Now, interestingly, the painting was done by myself and another friend of mine with whom we were running around selling the tomato sauce in the supermarkets. We did this as a way to save money. So we got busy and painted. It took us about 1.5 weeks to do the entire painting. After that, we contacted Umeme, we applied for an electricity connection, and in this picture, you can see Umeme guys at our site in 2019 now, installing a pole and an electricity connection. Now, at this point, we really began to take things a notch higher, and things were really coming into play. In the end, This is how the once abandoned house now looked like. It looked like it now could be habitable and it could run an operation such as ours. Looking at this photo just takes me back, and it was really an exciting time. So this is our factory today. This is where we do our operations today. The location is in Gregayaza area, a village called Nalumuri. So the next part in that journey, as we were doing all those civil works, we embarked on now, we had to order for an automatic ketchup packaging machine. You see, we needed a machine that packs those small pouches, the ones that are common in tomato sauces. After looking around for a long time, we discovered that we could not find it locally here in Uganda. So we had to import this machine from India. And I remember it took us about 7 months just trying to save up to raise money to be able to afford this machine. So when we finally got the first half, we made an order, and it took about 7 weeks for this machine to arrive in Uganda. And by that time, we had raised the other half. So this photo shows you the arrival of that machine. Everybody on the team was excited. We hardly slept the day before. Next, we invested in packaging material. Those rolls that you see there are the rolls that we use to pack the tomato ketchup. So those ones were locally sourced here. They were quite expensive, but they're available locally here. A company called Luca Plastics. At that point, we then invested in other things, such as the raw materials, cooking oil, everything that we were going to use. At this point, yes, you could feel that we were really taking things a notch higher, and the company was finally coming, to pieces. So before we could move on, we decided to formalize the business. Away from my small kitchen in Chisasi, where we were running an informal business, I wanted us to create something formal. So the first order of business here was we registered the company. Me and John registered this company as the directors. And so, yes, we began on that process to formalize the business. Next, we registered a trademark for the business. We did not want to come in with a product, give it a name, and a while later, we are told that the name belongs to somebody and we couldn't use it. So we did things the right way, and we registered a trademark. Next, we got a trading license that allowed us to begin operations formally. So yes, the journey really looked like it was taking shape. At that point now, since we were building up things, we had to build a team. And the first thing we did to build a team, we set up a proper governance structure. This image shows you the governance structure that we set up at the very beginning. At the very top, we came up with an advisory board. This was like an overseer, an oversight role that then makes decisions on behalf of the company. And so we decided that John would become the chairman of that advisory board. And we brought some other experts on board to help us steer the small business to new frontiers. Then below the advisory board, we had the CEO. And naturally, as the founder, I became the CEO. And below that, then we had the departmental heads, such as the head of production, the head of marketing, the administrator, and all those other things. Then below that, we had these other people like the cleaners, security guards, sales agents. So yes, we wanted to run a clean house. We came up with a proper governance structure. When this was done, we then embarked on recruiting a team. And in this picture, you can see these are the very first people that we brought on board in 2019. This was a very wonderful team. These people were committed, they were enthusiastic, they had the zeal. And when I look at this photo, I just think of how far we have come as a team. So yes, we embarked on hiring a team. Now next, we began the process of setting up systems. We realized that if we're going to do this the proper way, we had to put in place systems that can allow the business to grow, to thrive. Now, John has had a lot of experience in the corporate world, so he was really instrumental in this process. The first thing we did was we set up systems to track sales and inventory, that basically day-to-day sales, weekly and monthly. So yes, we came up with something like that, and we digitized it using available applications. Next, we came up with another system that allows us to track sales, but then it also allows us to track expenses, and it allowed us to track our daily revenues as they came in. We used an application called Web Apps. So yes, we wanted things to be done the proper way. Now, this image shows you what we call Unbased Permits. These are the permits that allow you to use Unbased QMark on your products. Now, we laid the groundwork to begin the process of certifying some of our products. But this process is lengthy and sometimes can be really complex. So we did not get these permits for at least another probably 1 year or 10 months, something like that. But yes, we began on the process. Now, with all those things that I've been talking about, we were finally ready to start operations. Everything, we had tied up all the loose ends. I was simply overjoyed, so excited. I felt like a real CEO at the time. You can only imagine. So this picture shows you how we began operations. And let me tell you, people, we began in a very, very humble way. If you can look at this picture, you can see a small orange gas cylinder. That is how small we began. You can see small saucepans. You can see small buckets, small basins. Our operation was so simple. In fact, the only thing that we really invested a substantial amount in was the packaging rolls and the ketchup machine. Those are the things where we saved up and spent quite a bit. Everything else was so simple. So at the end of May 2019, the first pouches or sachets rolled off the production line, and you can see them here. I was so overjoyed. I remember holding these things in my hands, and indeed, the dream looked like it was really taking shape. Then on the 3rd of June, 2019, this is me in the very first school we visited, trying to now build a market for this ketchup. This school is called Emma High School in Chisasi. In my hands, I'm holding the very first carton, one of the first cartons that we sold in 2019. And at the back, you can see some point of sale displays, basically posters that were intended to let the kids know that yes, there was a new premium ketchup on the market, and they had to take advantage of it. I brought some 2 friends of mine on board, Michael and Timo. These guys were then to serve as sales representatives. These are the guys that were going to drive the product to all the schools and spread the ketchup gospel. These were very amazing guys to work with. So with that, we quickly began to build a network of schools. At that time, I remember John surrendered his small Primo because we needed a car that was fuel efficient and was resilient. And we did not have a car that was fuel efficient. So what we did, John surrendered his small Primo at the time. I became the designated driver. And those other 2 guys that you just saw became the sales representatives. So we used to run around Kampala, Wakiso, and Mukono like madmen. Each day from 9 a.m. in the morning to 6 p.m., we were just hopping from school after school after school. And by the end of that term, we were able to build our distribution to 50 schools within all those areas. It was a really challenging time because we worked. I remember at some point the entire team looked exhausted, but it was the strategy that we had set, and we had to push it forward. So at the end of that term, we got back to the drawing board to assess how effective the business was. We had numerous conversations, but in the end, we decided that we had to scale the business. Yes, we had built a distribution of about 50 schools, but it was not enough. The potential was simply so big. A quick Google search will show you that Uganda has about 8,000 secondary schools. So being in 50 did not even cut it for us. So we decided to scale the business. Now, the first order of business here was to extend our product line. We had to grow our products. Before then, we were running with only one product, which is the shake ketchup. So we realized that there are still enormous opportunities. We had to benefit from economies of scale if we introduce new products. So we experimented, and again, we went through that process of coming up with a new product, minimum viable product, experiments in schools. And we came up with shake tomato sauce, which is the red one. And then we came up with shake appeta, which is the yellow one. Now with the entry of these into the school market, immediately we saw our market share as a brand grow to about 60 or 70% in many of these schools. And it was an exciting time. We wasted no time. We came up with posters, beautiful posters such as these, and we created a lifestyle around our condiments. You know, it was not just a ketchup. This was a brand that actually understood the kids. It was an exciting time. And so from that point on, we began to run around again schools. We built the distribution now from 50 schools. We took it all the way to more than 100 schools in 6 districts. We were able to distribute this condiment as far as Gulu, Mbarara, went to Mbale. So the operation was really running big. At the factory, we were busier than we had ever been. In this photo, you can see an example of cartons that were slated to go out to the field that particular day. Let me tell you, it was a really busy time for us. In fact, when we began this business in my kitchen in Kisasi, I did not realize how busy and demanding the business was going to be. We hardly slept. On my end, I would wake up very early in the morning, run to the factory. As CEO, I had to make sure that things were being done right. Then by 9 a.m., I had to be in the very first school with my sales team. We'd run around all these districts the whole day. And then in the evening, I would again run back to the factory to see what was happening. It was a really challenging time, but we were happy that we were pushing. At some point, the entire team was so exhausted because we even had to work night shifts, but we put in the time. Now, around that time, we arrived at a decision to venture out into beverages. You see, every time we got into school holidays, the kids went back home. We were redundant. As a factory, we closed and waited for them to come back. Now, to ensure business continuity, we had to come up with a product that was sold outside of the schools, a product that we could sell throughout there. So naturally, we decided that beverages are the easy thing to do. And so it led us to this. This fruit is called tamarind fruit. Basically, this fruit is indigenous in some of the areas in the north. Now, we found this fruit to be very interesting because we wanted to launch our product, but we didn't want to just come up with a juice. We wanted something with a strong value proposition. And so what we did, we identified this fruit. For those who do not know, it is a very nutritious fruit. So just like that, we had a tasty juice that also had immense health benefits. So that led us now to this. These were the very first cartons that we made of this shake enkoge. Enkoge is basically a local word in Uganda for tamarind fruit. Now, I packed these cartons myself, I remember. It was an exciting time, and I remember telling a friend back in the day and said, now we are like Coca-Cola. We also have the juice that is well packaged, it is well cartoned, and the market is for us to conquer. So I was really excited as a businessman. Now, we did not only end at this. We moved ahead and continued experimenting with other products. Now, on the left, we have a product called Shake Omubisi. Now, we experimented with banana fruit juice. There's a certain type of banana that makes some really interesting and tasty juice. Now, on the right, we have a product called Sabula. Sabula is a strong wine. We call it Sabula, in fact, because it has a high alcohol content. Interestingly, this wine was made out of tamarind fruit as well. Now, because of some hiccups, these products were not launched. They did not take off. But we have the recipes. And our plan is that at an appropriate time, we shall introduce these products because everything was ready. They were already branded. And so anytime we could choose to launch them into the market. So with those things in place, we decided to now increase production capacity. Now, remember, at this time, we had already begun distributing our shake in Koge, and we're pushing it in Kampala, in Wakiso, and in Kono. And we pushed this juice for about 5 months, and we were actively opening new markets, busy trading centers, and it was an exciting time. But around this time, we realized we had to increase production capacity because now we had a lot on our hands, and we had not really invested in increasing the capacity of the factory. So after running with the Nkoge juice and producing it for about 5 to 6 months, we were using manual methods. We were finally able to raise some money, and we brought in this pulping machine. This is a machine that squeezes juice out of the tamarind, and it works much faster. Now, for about 6 months, we were using manual methods, but we realized that they were time consuming, they were so tiring, and the juice yield was so little. So we were losing money. So this photo shows you the arrival of this machine, which we locally fabricated here in Uganda. And it was an exciting time as well. Now, around that point, we finally invested in an underground water system. Now, one of the things that you'll find interesting, and I should have pointed this out, this entire time I have been narrating this journey, our factory did not have running water. So where our factory is located, we do not have national water coverage around that area. So the only thing we could do now, we had to be resourceful. So we got a border guy, and each morning by 6 a.m., this guy would come and pick jerry cans from the factory, and then he would ride to Gayaza town, which is about 8 kilometers from our factory, just to fetch water. Now, this was a really expensive thing on our side. And then also, it was time consuming. So finally, we were able to invest in an underground water system, and we got water as a business. This was a really remarkable upgrade for us. Next, we had to now do some civil works on the factory. Now, at this point, it's important to note that our UNBS certification level had really reached a mature state, and we're expecting these guys to come and look at our factory. So we invested some little money to try and bring these factories to standard, the UNBS standard. And as you can see, we began to remodel the place, we put in tiles, basically to try and make this like a real processing unit. So we did that around that time. Then we also expanded our team. Those are the guys in production. Now, this picture shows you the departmental heads within the production unit. These are some of the guys that we brought on board and expanded operations. So there was somebody in charge of ketchup, someone in charge of appeta or tomato sauce, for shake and koge, guys in packaging. So it was a very wonderful team. And as you can see, we're now running this business the legit way. We had PPE. Basically now, our operation looked like it was taking shape and we're really growing as manufacturers. Now, at that point, the unthinkable hit us as a business. Literally overnight, COVID came and our main products, which were the 3 condiments that we're selling in the school business, were shut out of business because schools were closed. We did not see it coming, and it really hit us bad as a business. So we were left with just one product, which was now the tamarind fruit juice, which was still in its infancy stages. And so as a business, we decided that if schools are closed, we need to now mobilize as much resources as we can, and we put all our focus on this tamarind fruit juice and ensure that we build a market. So that's exactly what we did. This photo shows you what used to happen when we decided to now build a market for the tamarind juice. You can see myself driving. I used to be the designated driver for all my sales people. And in the back, you can see some of the sales ladies that we brought on board and then some of the sales guys. So this is how it used to happen. I would put guys in the small premium. At some point, it got small. Other guys would now use borders to reach the destinations we're going to activate. Now, what happened was we would go to a trading center. We identified busy trading centers that had our target market. Our target market was basically Omuntu 1C, those kinds of people. So because we did not have money to invest in radio advertising or TV advertising, we decided to be creative. We used our product. We had the tasty juice. In this photo, you can see salespeople giving out samples to residents in a busy town. That's what we used to do. We'd go to an area, give out free samples to residents, and we would cause some bit of excitement. Then we'd give out a promotional fee where we'd say maybe buy 2, get 1 free. Ugandans love this kind of stuff. And it really worked for us. Within no time, these trading centers, the word spread and sales for our juice began to grow. In this photo, you can see sales agents bargaining for a sale, while one other one is pinning up a poster to drive awareness at these places. So yes, we did not have money, but as a team, we decided to be very creative, and it worked for us a great deal. Now, around that time, we managed to get some money and we invested in this tricycle. This entire time I've been telling this journey, we had one means of transportation, which was the small premium. It used to do everything. Now, because we're dealing in something that was bulky, such as the juice, the cartons of juice are really bulky. We decided that for us to really build capacity, we had to invest in a tricycle. Now, with the coming of this tricycle, we were so overjoyed as a team because finally you could pack some 50, 100 cartons in this thing and you take it to the market. Before then, the Premier took very small quantities. So with this tricycle, we then really built Kampala, Wakiso, and Mukono markets. But we came to a point where we saw this market had become small. We wanted to move on to the next market. So after many months, we invested in this vehicle, this Town Ace. Now, this vehicle was so instrumental in our journey. It came many months after we had been serving these markets. This vehicle allowed us now to expand our market from Wakiso, Mukono, and Kampala to the far east. This vehicle was bought used. We did not have money to buy a brand new vehicle. So we just got some little monies, we bargained for a used vehicle, and we pimped it up. The way you see it here, it looked good, but it had its own issues. But we were able to really get our money's worth out of this vehicle because it built the market from Wakiso, where we are located, all the way to Malaba border. all those districts in between this vehicle visited. So we went to Mbale, to Tororo, to Busia, to Malaba, to Jinja, to Iganga, Namutumba, Busembatia. We spread the gospel of Shake and Koge. And at around that time, the vehicle began to, literally we had vehicle breakdowns every 2 days because we had really pushed its limits. So we were losing a lot of money, and naturally we decided that we needed to buy a proper vehicle. But again, this was after many, many, many months. So we sold that vehicle after some time, and we invested in a much bigger truck, as you can see in this image. This truck was bought, by the way, using a loan. We could not afford to buy it out of our own pockets. So in this image, with this coming of the new truck, we now had capacity and we were loading cartons. On this particular day, we loaded about 800 cartons. Now you can see how our efforts to build a market for this product actually began to pay off, because we moved away from just selling a few hundred cartons in Kampala, Wakiso, and Mukono. We moved to thousands of cartons every single month. So it was an exciting time for us, but again, it was really challenging because there was a lot of work to do. In these images, you can see now some of our products at wholesale shops in the field. It was an exciting time. Guys were buying 100 cartons, 50 cartons, 100 cartons. And so the juice had really taken off at this point. Again, we're running with only one product at the time, so we gave it everything we had. Now, this map shows you how we had really built our distribution. Because we're organized, we mapped out our routes, and all those small dots are town centers that we're now actively distributing Shake and Koge in. And so with this map, we'd look at this map and say, so which other area should we go to? Then we go and open it and then we mark it out here. So it was a really exciting time for us as a business. We were really growing and the cartons were moving. In fact, we took sales of Nkoge from just a few hundred cartons to more than 10,000 cartons in sales in about 7 to 8 months. So we're doing well as a business. Now, next, last year, and now we're in about 2021, the second lockdown is announced by the president. When the second lockdown came into force, it had a detrimental effect on the sales for our juice that had been doing well. You see, our people, the Mutuawansi, live on day-to-day earnings. Now, because most of these people are now stuck at home, they did not have money, and sales for our juice began to plummet. Like from thousands of cartons, the sales were really taking a dip. And so we got back to the drawing board as a business, and we decided our existence is threatened. What do we do? So at this point, naturally, we thought soap was a good idea, laundry bar soap, because we needed a product that could handle those economic shocks, and soap looked like the product just to do it. So again, we went back to the process. Now, at this point, we have mastered the process of developing new products, going through the testing phases, researching the market, and basically coming out with packaging, branding. We have done this for now 4 products. So we are very good at it at this point. So while people were at home during lockdown, while people were at home waiting for Nabanja money, for us, we found a way to take our head of production to a training facility so that he would be trained in how to make soap. Long story short, he learned how to make soap. We came back to factory. During lockdown, we bought some raw materials, as you can see in this picture. Then we began experimenting in-house to perfect our art of making soap. And in this image, you can see now Michael, our head of production, experimenting in how to make soap. These other 2 images show you we experimented with white soap and with brown soap. Again, we're building prototypes and we're using very manual methods, as you can see. This is how we began. But from here, we're able to get our first prototypes and we're able to take them to our friends and family and test them on real people who use soap. At the end of the day, they gave us feedback, we refined the products until we had a product that was now ready for the market. Now, the next order of business was to now look at how we roll out. As the company, we roll out into business. And as you can see in this photo, we went to buy the oils and some of the raw materials that make soap. In this picture, we were at a place where we were buying palm kernel oil, and they were actively measuring it, as you can see. On the right was one of the first sample boxes that we received. And I remember sending this image to John, very excited that, John, we finally gotten the boxes. These logos and the branding was done by ourselves with the help of an expert, because we have been doing this for long. We know how to build a brand at this point. So the next order of business now was for us to start at small scale. Now, this is after the lockdown has eased. We now begin to manufacture soap at a small scale. Now, the first image on the left shows you how we're cutting the soap in the beginning. That is a small device called a table cutter. Basically, you cut the soap manually using a small wire, as you can see. In the middle, shows you how we used to stamp soap in the beginning. This was now December of last year. We basically had a small stamp that was made out of rubber. You would put it on a soft bar of soap, and then you'd begin to hit that stamp into the bar so that the words would reflect on the bar of soap. And we're using a stone. If you can see, we're basically using a stone. It was a very humble beginning, how we broke out into the soap. Then on the extreme right, you will then see the very first boxes. We're packing the very first bars of soap, and we're excited that finally we have a working product. The product, the quality was good. The finishing of the bar, not so good because it was manual. However, it worked. Now, this image shows you the very first boxes of soap that we then launched onto the market. We spent an entire day producing these boxes, just 7 boxes, but we spent an entire day doing them. I remember taking this image, sharing it with John, and he was just overjoyed at what we had accomplished. At that point then, after taking that product to the market and receiving feedback, you see, I'll tell you guys, selling soap is one of the easiest things, because when we took those boxes, those first boxes, even though they were not perfect, they were bought up without even bargaining. So naturally, we thought we should expand the operation. Now, on the extreme right, we invested in some more equipment. Those are called soap molds. Those are the ones that allow us to produce the soap. So we invested in soap molds. Then we expanded the operation. The picture in the middle, you can see now we're working out of the veranda. We don't even have space. We didn't even have space for this soap. We just decided to be resourceful, and we took on a small veranda. That's where we're doing these operations from. As you can see now, there are people there packing the bars. One of the guys there is mixing the soap. But from that point, we're now able to build our capacity. From 7 boxes, we're now producing 40 boxes a day. Sorry, guys, technical glitch there, but we are almost at the end of the journey. So let's just fast forward back to where we were. Yes, so at that point, we really grew, and we're now taking 200 boxes because we're producing about 40 boxes a week. So we're able now to grow, and we're now delivering about 200 boxes.
Eddie, we can't hear you. I think the network got an issue.
Yo, sorry for the technical glitch. But at this point, we had really grown the operation, and from making just 7 boxes, from making just 7 boxes a day, we built the capacity now to about 40 and 50 boxes a day. So that meant that in a week, we'd be able to produce some 200 boxes. And as you can see now here, these are boxes that were ready for the market. And at the extreme right, if you can look at the picture at the extreme right, we are now finally in the market, selling hundreds of boxes. Now, the extreme right shows you a picture at a wholesale shop somewhere in Iganga district. This guy bought 200 boxes. So we realized that there was really a potential in this product. So while our juice had taken a hit, we had found a way to jump right back. by being innovative and pushing forward as a business. So from then on, we began to produce our 200 boxes each week. And as you can see in these photos, these are now wholesale shops in Jinja and in Kamuli, where we are now actively distributing our soap. So at that point, we are really building capacity as a team. Now, we realized that if we're going to produce only 200 boxes a week, we're still going to play small time. We wanted to really play big time. And since our juice had taken a hit, we really had to ramp up sales for soap so that we are able to now build again a product that can carry us through. And that's exactly what we did. This picture will show you the arrival of now we invested in a machine. It's called a soap plotter. This machine has the capacity to produce 300 bars of soap in an hour. So with this machine, we're now able to really raise our numbers every single week, and we're able to now do about 500 boxes. At least that is the plan. We want to do 500 boxes a week, and that is the plan that we are chasing now. So with this, guys, this is where we are today. We have prospects to build the business further, and I want to thank you for being patient with us. And at this point, John, I think I want to hand back to you.
Wow, what an amazing story. We can now have a brief Q&A. So there were some questions in the chat. Ed, if you could go to the chat and try to respond to some of those questions. Someone is asking, please share the book. There's a book you referred to at the beginning.
Okay.
So Ed, you can respond to those questions.
Okay, yeah, so I will share the title. I'm going to share the title of the book shortly. I'll put it in chat so that people can see it. So Peter here says, what are the regulatory requirements for running a cottage business, especially one dealing with foods and beverages? Well, the regulatory requirements are like for any other business, but these ones are cut across different spectrums. So for starters, if you're dealing in food, you have to meet UNBS requirements. So you have to have the codes of conduct for how you make food. So UNBS has an entire system for how you meet these requirements, and on their website you can get guidance on how to do this. But then on top of that, of course, there are regulatory requirements like from URA, the regulatory requirements from URSB, your local town council, you require a trading license. So basically, it's like any other business. If you want to run it the formal way, in a way that is not a briefcase company, you have to do your research and understand the area that you're operating in, what are some of the regulatory requirements that I'll have to fulfill. Although from my experience, you take it one at a time. Don't try to take all of them at a go. One at a time always does it for us. Then Peter also goes on to say a small scale undertaking. The cottage business is a small scale undertaking. However, the growth of that business seemed to require some serious capital investment. Of course, it's like machinery and all that. How did you factor in all this cost of production in comparison with the pricing of the product to ensure you're still making profits? Now, as a business, of course, you have to sit down. First of all, you have to understand that when you get into manufacturing, the game of manufacturing is a game of numbers. So if you're producing just a few items, it is less likely that you will break even. You have to figure out a way to mass produce. So if for us, we are making, for example, soap today, you have to find a way of selling thousands of boxes. It is how you really break even. However, if you do not have the capacity to really scale the business, you can find products that have bigger margins, because there are products that have small margins and you have to sell so many units. But there are also products where you sell fewer units, but they are bigger margins. So as a businessman, you have to make this distinction and choose which business would be ideal for you. Of course, you're going to need to invest in some capital assets, especially if you're going to mass produce. You're going to need to invest in some basic machinery. My advice here is look out for local fabricators. Some of these machines can be made locally here. For example, the soap loader that I just showed you a while back was actually gotten from Kampala here. So you can figure out ways of finding machinery that is not so expensive. But yes, it's a numbers game. And if you want to scale it, you need some basic kinds of machinery. It is important also for you to understand the cost of production. One of the things that we've done as a business is for every product, we have its cost of production. So we know our margins. I know that if I sell a carton of this, I'm going to make this much money. And so I find a way to keep my costs within there. But then again, don't expect to make money the very first month you open. It is a journey. You should be looking at the bigger picture, because if you're so focused on making profits the very first month, it is less likely that you will be able to make the steps that are necessary to grow the business. So somebody asked how much did the submachine cost? Those submachines, it depends on really where you go. For us, we managed to get a good deal for about 8.5 million for the submachine. So it really depends on where you're going to go. Different people have different prices. Then somebody here asks, I'd like to get in touch with Eddie. Yes, John just shared my number. If you can look in the chat, my number is there. You can get in touch with me. Yeah, then somebody here says, come on, 15 says, thank you so much. Do you train in soap making? Yes, we can actually help people, because that's why we're doing this. We want to share our knowledge with people that are out there. So if somebody is interested in learning how to make soap, yeah, we shall charge you a small consultation fee. But the benefit of working with people like us is that we are actively selling soap. You see, there are so many people out there right now that are teaching people how to make soap. The downside to these people's training is that they have never actually made soap for business. They've never sold soap in the market. So they will only teach you a soap formula, but they will not teach you the business of how to make soap. So if you want to learn the business of how to make money from soap, yes, you can come to us. We run a consultancy program, and we can help you learn how to make soap. Then Arnold says, thanks for sharing this journey, very insightful and inspirational. Big thanks to the money engineer. Thank you, Arnold. Opio Simon says, thank you so much, Eddie. You have spoken to us with great earth and generosity. I'm asking, what is the right time to plan for a business? Because is it when we have mobilized resources enough to start? No, I think this will really take you back to the beginning of my journey. The right time to start anything is now. If you have an idea, there is never a time where you're going to have everything. If you can look at the journey that I've just explained, there is no single time where we had everything that we needed. You have to look for ways of being resourceful. So if you have an idea, start with that concept that I explained, minimum viable product or service. Find a way to create that vision in your head and bring it to reality using minimal resources. What you want to do is test it on the market. Don't take your business to the market before you test. So a minimum viable product allows you to use very few resources, take your product to the market and validate it. So don't wait to start. The right time to start is now. Yeah, Simon, I hope that answers your question. Then Joel says, how much can the learning cost? I think to make soap, it's like how much you charge maybe to make soap. Well, Joel, you can get in touch with us, and depending on what your needs are, we can come up with something. You see, for us, we are young people that are also trying to build something, because we believe industrialization will take our country and it will give back to the communities through jobs. So one of the things that I implore you to do is, if you have an idea and you want to act on it, just get in touch with us and we shall be able to work out the costing. Something that works. We shall not charge you like an exorbitant fee. We shall find something that works. Then Chigo Jimmy here says, nice educative presentation. You talked about the palm oil. As a chocolate maker, I'm interested where you procure palm oil and how readily available it is. Jimmy, you can also get in touch. We can see how to help you there. Then Diana says, how did you handle remuneration for your staff before sales? Yeah, so this is an interesting question. I actually left it out. You see, the journey of a startup is not an easy one. because you're going to meet so many challenges. And one of the challenges we met at the very beginning was that, yes, we had recruited a team, but we did not have money to pay the team. We relied on sales, and sales take time. Sometimes they take time. So along the way, yes, indeed, we actually lost some critical staff along the way because people were working so hard. At some point, the money wasn't there to pay them. In other instances, the money took so long. So some people chose to move on, but it is the reality of running a small business. However, you need to keep your team small. You should only hire, or you should only bring on board people that you absolutely need. For every person you bring on board, you need to have a real justification for why you need that person. So don't hire people for the sake of hiring. You should only hire people that are really going to bring value to the team. But then also one of the things you can do is sell your vision to some of these people. Bring them on board as partners if you can. This way, they are not only thinking about money, but they can also think about the possibility of building this thing with you. So yes, you just have to be resourceful because in the beginning, money may not be there. So yes, John, I don't know if there are any other questions. It looks like we've come to the end of the questions in the chat. Are there any other questions? All right, so yeah, somebody asked, Joel here asks, what are the main challenges that you faced as a company? Now, the challenges for startups are many. And sometimes it will appear as though the odds are against you and they're stacked against you for you to fail. However, if you can go back to my conversation, the justification as to why you got into that business should be the thing that carries you through. Every time you think about why you got back into that business, it should be the thing that gets you out of your somber mode and carries you through. So some of the challenges that we faced, for beginners, I just said we lost critical staff because at some point as a business, we were struggling to pay people. Then the other one is that manufacturing depends on what you can produce. Now, as a small company, first of all, we have to buy raw materials. And these raw materials, as you're starting out, you're only beginning to build relationships. It's very difficult for people to give you credit. So in the beginning, we had to look for money somehow to be able to afford these raw materials. And some of them were a bit pricey. So we've had that challenge, and it's a never-ending challenge. Raw materials are quite pricey, and some of them are even difficult to get. So that is one of the challenges. Now, the second challenge is that as for startups, we're usually unable to hire experienced people because experienced people charge a lot of money. You cannot afford them. So we are left with people who do not have a lot of experience, for example, to do sales, to do production. So one of the challenges we faced was now, as people in management, we had to embark on now a process of training these people to get them to help your business because they can only offer what they have. So that's one of the biggest challenges that startups face. Then one of the other challenges is also that you need capital investment. Now, things like buying vehicles, buying machinery, some of those things, there is no way around them. At some point, you will need to invest in some bit of capital assets here and there. But I think the way to do this is you should not die with these things alone. Like myself, I managed to pitch my idea to John. John came on board. And yes, with John, we began to raise money and we were able to at least raise some money to invest in some of these things. But also, because our business was set up in a way that was organized and stuff like that, we were able to attract private investment. So we reached out to some people, mainly family, and we interested them in our idea, and they bought into the idea. So these guys were able to give us money in exchange for some shares in the business. So that's how we've been able to raise some money to buy some of these capital assets. So the other challenges are just day-to-day things that any other business faces, really. Yeah. Yeah, John, I don't see any other questions here. Okay, there's Emma here. Let's see. Okay, yeah, so there is Emma here. It says, thanks for the show. I'd like you to reshare the application used to track sales. I'm passionate about the fruit and sales business. Guide me on the packaging and how to go about it. Emma, you can get in touch. My number has been put somewhere there in the chat. John has shared the number. So Emma, please get in touch with me. We can see how to help you with that one. I believe we can be able to help you. Simon here says a vote of thanks. Again, thanks for putting this together to encourage other entrepreneurs. Yes, thank you so much for that, Simon. Yeah, we really appreciate it. Yeah, so guys, my number is there. For those of you who want to learn more, please, you can get in touch with me. You can get in touch with John, the money engineer. And then maybe one other thing, on my Facebook, please look me up on Facebook. On a daily basis, I share updates about our journey. So this conversation continues on a daily basis. So look me up on Facebook and send me a friend request, or you can follow me for insights. I'm always giving out insights about business on a daily basis. Yes, so I was saying that, on a personal note, I run on my Facebook. I use my Facebook to give out insights. So this conversation that I've just described for you here, it continues on my Facebook. Each other day, I'm updating people about what we are doing as a business, some of the challenges we are facing. So please look me up on Facebook, Eddie Mugulusi, and that way you'll be able to get daily insights about business and about our journey and how to push it forward. Yes, so John, I don't know if there are any other questions, but I believe, yeah, the rest is people saying thank you so much. Guys, we want to thank you for turning in today. We want to thank you for giving us the time. And we want to remain in touch and share with each other. So please, my number is there, John's number. John, you can also provide your number. Oh yeah, somebody asks, this is Albert, when can I think about getting a Q mark for my liquid soap production? That's an interesting question. Now, before you think about getting a Q mark, you need to get to a level where you have grown your business and you've actually ascertained that the potential in the market is enormous and you are ready to tap into that enormous potential. If you're selling your liquid soap in a few villages, I wouldn't advise you to do that. You should only get Unbased certification if you're ready to scale the business and sell across many districts, because it is only then that you'll actually get your money's worth. Because you see, getting Unbased, you're also going to spend some money. You're going to spend some money getting it. So the only way to get value out of it should be that your sales are projected to really grow. So you can also get in touch. Since we've done this for a couple of our products, I can also guide you on this journey. So please get my number. You can call me and we can see how to help you as well.
Yes, thank you very much. I saw a hand. Emma, did you have your hand up? Emma, I saw Emma had a hand. Maybe it's not. Yeah, so thank you very much. Thank you for sparing your morning. We shall have another session end of May, the last Saturday of May. But for now, Emma, you want to say anything?
No, my question has been answered. I just wanted to ask the question that has been answered. I think I will just get in touch to you.
Oh, okay, thank you. So thank you, everyone. Eddie's number is on WhatsApp. You can follow the Money Engineer on Facebook. You can follow Eddie on Facebook. Please reach out, and I believe together we can build a better Uganda. I think there's a role in this country for young people to take charge of their economic lives, because if you look at the social media, TV, everyone is lamenting poverty, government, politics, but no country has ever grown by people lamenting on Facebook. It is people like you and I who are sacrificing their Saturday, building things, building businesses. That is how a country grows. That is how you solve unemployment. That's how you create industrialization. So I'd really like to encourage the young people here to go out and do things. You have the potential to do these things. There's no politician who is going to take care of you. There is no religious leader who is going to take care of you. The young people have to take charge of their lives, and there's a lot of potential in Uganda. So I'd really like to encourage you all to go out there and create the lives you want. So thank you very much. All the best, and let's keep in touch.